Hey brothers and sisters, well, I'm back here already. It's only been about 3 days since the last video, but things are really moving. And a lot of the last few videos I've done here have been a bit, speculation, but speculation based on Bible scholars pointing to things, suspecting that we're seeing fulfillment or we're about to see fulfillment of biblical events. And since things seem to be moving so fast, um, we, I guess I just want to keep laying down what people are uncovering and then come back, take a look at the Bible like I've done in the last several videos, and try and see if it fits the biblical scenario. Actually, you know, I usually go from the Bible and then look at current events. And in a way, I've already done that in the past. You'll see a bunch of the passages we'll hit tonight have been, spread throughout several different videos I've done. And the themes I've described this over and over again. I'm going to try and scrape it together one more time here just because it looks like we're going to see some fulfillment here. And I'm going to start with the video that got me going here is from Pastor J.D. Farag. And if you're not familiar with him, I definitely say subscribe to his channel. He's a pastor, Calvary Chapel pastor in Kaneohe. I think I'm saying that right, Kaneohe, in Hawaii. And he does these prophecy updates every week. And so subscribe to the channel. You'll see his expositional studies every week, and then you'll see his prophecy update, which tend to be really good. So we're going to just look at 2 minutes out of his current week's prophecy update, and then we're going to track this through the Bible and just demonstrate again why, which certainly looks like we're teeing up for prophetic fulfillment. And this, I guess, goes hand in hand in a lot of ways with the prior video I just did. It was Mystery Babylon. So if you haven't watched that one, watch it at some point, either before or after this video, because you're going to see that there's the weight of the biblical evidence is starting to point toward what we actually see going on the ground. So let's start off with this clip here, and then we'll pop back and we'll do our little Bible study.
Of Babylon. Call me silly, but this begs the question of what's so significant about Babylon? Well, for any of you who have been attending here for any length of period of time, you know that I am one of the remaining few, maybe only two, Joel Rosenberg. I'm in good company with Joel Rosenberg, who still hold to the belief that the Babylon during the 7-year tribulation is literal Babylon, ancient Babylon in Iraq. And it will be the headquarters that will be set up. It is my opinion, and please, it's only my opinion, and you know what opinions are like. They are like armpits. We all have a couple, and sometimes they don't smell that good. So here it is, my opinion. They are setting up a headquarter in ancient Babylon, exactly as we were foretold by the prophets of old. This is profoundly significant. Once they have set up a headquarter there, it will just be a matter of time before they will throw al-Maliki and the Shia Muslims with him out of Iraq and take control of Iraq and set up the caliphate there in Iraq.
Okay, so you saw the map there. What he was referring to is there's this group that is known as ISIS, and they're Sunni Muslims that have organized, I think, oddly enough, and a pastor here said as well, they are likely the rebels that the U.S. was funding and backing, as well as a bunch of the Middle Eastern countries like Qatar and maybe Saudi Arabia that have now, in a matter of like 2 or 3 days, taken over most of Iraq and have spread. They're spreading across. Now their goal is they want to set up the Islamic Caliphate, like he's saying, and take control of the Fertile Crescent. And one of their leaders just made some pronouncement about uh, seeing us in New York or something like that. And so it's a virulent Islamic group. Pastor also goes on to talk about the fact that they're absolutely decimating the Christian churches. They're finding any of the Christians and they're cutting their head off according to Sharia law. There's also mass murder now, like the Shia Muslims are being loaded into trucks, and you can go look. I think it's at Fox News today, several outlets, Debka file. They're loading them in trucks, driving them out to the desert, and shooting them in mass. Um, and it's just absolutely horrific. I mean, it does harken back to what happened with Hitler and the Nazis. Is that level of brutality that's going on right now, and it's not really getting the reporting, especially what they're doing with the churches and the Christians and the Jewish people is, it's scary how it fits, uh, the program that Hitler was under. And so this group ISIS is on the move. And then what the pastor was saying is, for some reason, they stopped 1 hour outside of uh, Baghdad, Iraq, and he was showing there on the map that Babylon, the ancient Babylon, happens to be 1 hour outside of uh, Baghdad. And he laughed and said, well, nobody in the news media is going to bring up that name, but he suspects then that this is what they're doing is they're building their headquarters to be based out of there. And so that's all extremely prophetic, if you're open to the idea that, as the Bible says, that ancient Babylon is the Babylon that we're going to see in the end times. This is very likely where this group has gone. Now, remember, if they end up being uh, a coordinated group of militant, militaristic Muslims, hey, there's three M's, that likely the U.S. and the other Middle East countries have funded, you can be sure that both sides are being played here because the U.S. put uh, Maliki in office originally in after the Iraq War, and so it's classic, Illuminati stuff. And yes, this will eventually, I'll guarantee you, show up as the Catholic Church behind the scenes, the Vatican in particular, orchestrating all these events. And the way it's viewed is the Vatican's in control of banking. Well, it's the world government right now, and banking is controlled through them, as well as the U.S., which certainly appears now to be the coordinating and organizing military arm of the one world government. Look at all the countries we've gone into. Look at all the places where we're shipping in arms and the CIA is supplying rebels or whatever. And now you've got this explosion of this ISIS. And if you just pop this into Google, ISIS, go look at the historical name and what's it about. It goes right back to the pagan religions again. It's just, you know, they're not even trying to hide this anymore. Certainly they gave it a name that has Islamic, Syrian, Ilsam, or whatever the name is supposed to stand for, but I'll guarantee you that acronym ISIS came from the same corrupt Luciferian people that are behind all this. And so I'll make that argument, and you can go dig that one up if it bothers you that I'm saying it. So now let's go pop through and take a look at a couple of things here. First one I want to draw your attention to is this article here. This article, Peter Goodgame, and he wrote this Red Moon Rising book. There's actually a few things I've read of his where I don't completely agree with his end time scenario, but he did a wonderful job of pulling together this notion of the Antichrist of old was Nimrod right after the flood, and he really does a nice job. It's in this series of articles talking about how it is that remanifest in the end times. So I got to give him a plug because it was some of these articles that originally got me into the Bible study that convinced me that the Babylon of old is going to come full circle. Um, and once you do the Bible study for yourself, which we're going to do a mini version of it here, I think you'll see why this just seems to make so much sense. And again, this is really hard to do this video with so many prominent people out there saying Babylon is New York or the US or Babylon is Rome or whatever. Let's pull it together, and I'm going to use a scenario that Dr. Chuck Missler uses to try and hook these things together biblically and demonstrate that what Pastor J.D. Frog just talked about is being super significant. The potential setting up of the caliphate from a Muslim perspective in Babylon is really important. Now, it'll be the caliphate to the um, Islam believing people, and it'll be the return of the Messiah, let's say, because we know the one world religion has to be set up. And so you have to fulfill both of the biggest religions out there and get them to believe in what will really be the Antichrist figure. And so for the Islamic folks doing all this battle, they're setting up for the Mahdi, I'm sure, or for the Caliphate. And, you'll see here in a minute that I think you'll watch and you'll see how after we're gone, the Vatican is going to be also in behind whoever shows up here. That's going to be the Antichrist. So let's start here in Micah. And we got to get context here. Just read this here now. Now gather yourself in troops, O daughter of troops. He has laid siege against us. They will strike the judge of Israel with a rod on the cheek. Who's that they're talking about, right? But you, Bethlehem, Ephrathah, though you're little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of you shall come forth to me the one to be the ruler in Israel, whose going forth is from old, from everlasting. Therefore he shall give them up until the time that she who is in labor has given birth. Then the remnant of his brethren shall return to the children of Israel, and he shall stand and feed his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of his name of the Lord his God, and they shall abide. For now he shall be great to the ends of the earth, and this one shall be the peace. Now, here's your little Christmas card up here, talking about Jesus coming out of Bethlehem. But he's going to stand up and feed the flock. He's going to deliver the children of Israel, and he's going to be the peace to the ends of the earth, right? So this is eschatological. This is end times oriented, right? Now watch this last part. When the Assyrian comes into our land, and when he treads in our palaces, then we shall raise up against him 7 shepherds and 8 princely men. They shall waste with the sword the land of Assyria, the land of Nimrod at his entrances. Thus he shall deliver us from the Assyrian when he comes into our land and when he treads within our borders. Now, I also, in the Mystery Babylon video, I went back and I showed you out of Exodus how there's a promise that God gave to Moses, that he will battle the Amalekites, I think it is, over time. And it could be a tie in here, this raising of 7 principal men, 7 shepherds and 8 princely men. Shepherds are rulers, right? And there's also in Revelation that same notion of 7, and out of there, one that has been, who will come. I forget how it's worded, but it could relate to this passage here. Now, there's Peter Goodgame and others. I'm trying to think of, there's several others out there right now teaching that there was an Antichrist-like figure documented in the Bible over time, starting with Nimrod, ending with the Antichrist, and potentially this is what the reference is here and in Revelation. So I'll mention that without drilling into it. But here you clearly have, in the land of Nimrod, he shall deliver us from the Assyrian, which Nimrod was from Assyria. And one of the things I didn't show in Pastor JD's video was right now under control already is the city of Mosul, which is Nineveh of old. It's the land of Assyria. It's also the land of Shinar. And so all of this is coming, full circle, bam, it's at such a rapid rate. So, okay, Nimrod, the Assyrian, okay, we get that, and he's going to come and tread on Israel, and Jesus, the Messiah, is going to come back, and he will be great to the ends of the earth, and he will save Israel. That's what we're getting in Micah 5. So now I'm just going to hit you over the head with all the passages, and hopefully you'll see how this is not New York. This is not wherever else you want to say. Zechariah 5:5. And the angel talked with me and went forth and say, lift up now thine eyes and see what that is going forth. And I said, what is it? And he said, this is an ephah that goeth forth. He said, moreover, this is the resemblance through all the earth. So we've got something that's in resemblance through all the earth. And behold, was lifted up a talent of lead, and this is a woman that sitteth in the midst of the ephah. Now we're talking symbology in the Bible, and a woman is a religious belief system. And he said this is wickedness, so it's an evil, wicked belief system. And he cast it in the midst of the ephah, and he cast away the lead upon the mouth thereof. And they lifted up thine eyes and looked, and behold, there came out 2 women, and the wind was in their wings, for they had wings like the wings of a stork, and they lifted up the ephah between the earth and heaven. Then said I to the angel who talked with me, whither do these bear the ephah? And he said unto me, to build it a house in the land of Shinar. Okay, it shall be established and set there upon her own base. Now, it's the Mystery Babylon video I just did. It's the mother of the pagan religions coming out of the original Babylon, from Nimrod, Semiramis, and then Tammuz. And so this wickedness belief system is being lifted up from somewhere and brought into the land of Shinar and reestablished on its own base. So if you ask me, this is really compelling. Now, I know you can find a YouTube video out there where the person dissects the Hebrew in Zechariah 5:5 and demonstrates that this could be a nuclear missile being shot at Iraq. Okay, but I think if you look in all the translations and commentaries, you'll see that this is what I just explained to you is a lot closer to what people do now. Dr. Missler uses this actually as a defense or an argument, and his argument is that the current, you want to say, incarnation of wickedness, and again, this is a woman, it's a belief system, is in the Vatican. And he's saying it's going to be lifted up out of there and planted in the plains of Shinar, the actual Iraqi area of uh, Babylon. And boy, that sure sounds like this could happen because the base is being established if that's what these um, Sunni Muslims are doing. Now, there's two women that come out and they have wind in their wings. And so, is this picturing Islam and the Catholic Church, the two predominant large, billion person plus faith organizations that then lift up this one world religious system and plant it in the land of Babylon. That's one possible interpretation of this that I'm going to put out there. Now, let's knock through a couple of other passages because we got some more in front of us here. Isaiah 10. And what will ye do in the day of visitation and in desolation which shall come from afar? To whom will you flee for help, and where will ye leave your glory? Without me they shall bow down under the prisoners, and they shall fall under the slain. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. O Assyrian, the rod of my anger, the staff in their hand, is mine indignation. I will send him against the hypocritical nation, against the people of my wrath, and I will give him charge to take the spoil, take the prey, and to tread them down like the mire in the streets. And so the hypocritical nation is Israel, and we know in Zechariah somewhere between 12 and 14, I'm sorry about that, but there is yet a future fulfillment likely of the city being taken, right, and 2/3 of the Jewish folks being killed. I'm really, I hate to talk about it because it's likely still yet future, even though we had the Holocaust there in the 20th century. This is still, I think, future. But again, we have the Assyrian, the rod of God's anger, and you can see here that the visitation and desolation, this matches what you read in Daniel 9, 24 through 27, that, I think it's in 27 where he talks about the Antichrist and the decree of the destruction will occur until a consummation, and that is poured out unto the desolate or something like that. But these are the same words. That's what this is pointing to. It's end time context here, and it's the Assyrian, the rod of his anger. Okay, go check that out in 9. I don't have time to go back and blast into that, but you can check out articles that point that way. Okay, and this is the rest of now the bottom part of Isaiah 10 here. Again, just demonstrating that this is end times oriented, and it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel and such as escape the house of Jacob will never again depend on him who defeated them, but will depend on the Lord, the Holy One of Israel in truth. Okay, you can really sense here what's going to happen. The remnant will return, the remnant of Jacob. That's the whole house of Israel, Judah, and all the tribes, let's put it that way, to the mighty God, for thou art my people, O Israel, be as the sand of the sea, a remnant of them will return. The destruction decreed shall overflow with righteousness, for the Lord God of hosts will make a determined end in the midst of all the land. Okay, therefore thus saith the Lord God, O my people who dwell in Zion, do not be afraid of the Assyrian. There we are again. He shall strike you with a rod and lift up his staff against you in the manner of Egypt for yet a very little while, and the indignation will cease, and will my anger and their destruction. So, bam, there it is again. The Assyrian is going to come into Israel, is going to come um, into Jerusalem area. It's going to be unfortunately devastating worldwide for the remnant of Jacob, the Israeli folks. For though your people Israel be as the sand of the sea, a remnant of them will return. Destruction is decreed. So It's sickening, but this is God's judgment, and it was just. Isaiah 14. Now we know Isaiah 13 and 14, right? It's very Lucifer. It's actually Lucifer is mentioned, but this is the premise: is again the Assyrian coming back from old. The pagan religions are looking for the return of Nimrod, and they call him by different things, Marduk and whatever, but he's coming back, and the Bible seems to agree with this. And so right in Isaiah 13 and 14, we get some interesting passages here. And I just clipped out a couple because you really would have to drain both chapters to really get full context. But let's just pop through here. The Lord of hosts says, sworn, saying, surely as I have thought, so it shall come to pass, and as I have purposed, so shall it stand, that I will break the Assyrian in my land. There you go again, and upon my mountains, and tread him under foot. Then shall his yoke depart from off of them, and his burden shall depart from their shoulders. This is the purpose that is purposed upon the whole earth, and that way you know that this isn't the Assyrian that came up against the northern tribes back in 722 with Sennacherib. This is, or 701, I guess, with Sennacherib. 722 was Shalmaneser that actually took the northern tribes, I believe. And this is the hand that stretched out upon all the nations. For the Lord of hosts has purposed it. Who shall disannul it? And his hand is stretched out. Who shall turn it back? So I encourage you to go read all of Isaiah 13 and 14 for context. But he's again called the Assyrian, so it's getting to be inescapable, isn't it? Now, one other intriguing thing that I haven't read in anybody else's commentary, so take that for what you want. It's just me and my little Bible study where I think the Lord showed me something here. Zechariah 14. So if you look in Zechariah 12, 13, and 14 are the end times chapters of Zechariah. In 12, you see him surrounded by their enemies, and by the time you get to 14, you see basically all the destruction of the world and all this, and then you come down to the very last verses in Zechariah. In that day, holiness to the Lord shall be engraved in the bells of the horses. The pots in the Lord's house shall be like the bowls before the altar. Yes, every pot in Jerusalem and Judah shall be holiness to the Lord of hosts. Everyone who sacrifices shall come and take them and cook in them. In that day there shall no longer be a Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts. Now, I think this is important because who are the Canaanites when the children of Israel came out through the Exodus, through the Red Sea parting and all that? They burned their 40 years from disobedience out in the desert wilderness, and then they're coming toward the land of Israel. Who do they start running into? They run into the Nephilim and the Canaanites and all that. And so you end up with really it's the Nephilim tribes are being referenced here, and we all speculate. Go back to Genesis 6, and it talks about the fallen angels mating with the daughters of women and producing giants. And then later in Genesis 10, when you get Nimrod described, he becomes a Gabor, and which is probably means giant in context. And giants are what the children of Israel see when they come into the land, and they have to kill them. They're, what did Joshua say? They're as small as grasshoppers in the eyes of these giants that were in the land when they came to it. And yet, the children of Israel had to take all these cities away from the giants. And the other tie back that we make is, if they're the product of the fallen angels mating with women, who were the fallen angels in allegiance with? And it was Satan's rebellion, right? And so the religious practices that spawned out of that surely Nimrod and Semiramis received from the fallen angels was, satanic worship. And so the Canaanite being a house of the Lord, make a long story short, ties in with, again, Daniel 9, verse 27, where in the midst of Daniel's 70th week, the Antichrist goes into the temple of the Lord and declares himself God. He very well is the Canaanite that's being referenced in this, in my opinion. So I think he may not be a mere mortal man, the Antichrist. I think somehow he is a product of Nimrod of old. And I know that's really stretching it, but you get that in this, the Assyrian article. You get that from Dr. Chuck Missler. I'm just going to put that out there as the way I'm seeing it. I don't know how that works, but that's what I think is going to happen. And I really think it has to be something fairly supernatural for all these world leaders to put down their own pride and rulership and give it unto the Antichrist, right? Which is, we know that's going to happen. Okay, so Jeremiah 50 was where I was going to close. Now that I'm seeing we're running at 31 minutes, I'm going to point you to this, but this is a whole chapter, and it's loads of fun if you like testing yourself in terms of near-far prophecy and the history of the Bible, because it's definitely near-far fulfillment. It has a lot of aspects of Neo-Babylon, days of Nebuchadnezzar coming up against Israel, but if you study it close, there's a whole bunch of little details that don't fit, and it's pointing us toward the Babylon of the end times. And notice it's in the land of the Chaldeans. Um, so I'll point that out. There's so many things in here, and this is, when you get to it, you can look that up. That's Marduk being referenced there, and I told you there was continuity between the Neo-Babylon worship of Marduk and the ancient Nimrod, and you can pick that out of the Bible right there. Um, yeah, there's so many passages in here that don't fit the ancient Neo-Babylon, that only fit an end times Babylon. I guess I just can't drain it, or it's going to be another 15 minutes to walk through this and demonstrate it to you. But I'll leave it to you. A couple of things you can put in the back of your brain before you read this is that um, when Babylon was taken back in the 500s BC, it was taken by King Cyrus without a battle. Um, they slipped in under the gate and there was no war, and yet the destruction of Babylon here happens and is being compared with Sodom and Gomorrah, which happened in a day. And so that doesn't fit. And permanent destruction didn't happen. The Babylon, Neo-Babylon, decayed over time, and this is a perpetual waste that happens, and make her desolate, and no one shall dwell there. Well, that didn't happen in the Neo-Babylon of the 500s BC, right? So there's a whole bunch of reasons why that Jeremiah here is in 50 really pointing to the end times Babylon, and this is one of the strong reasons also why we get Babylon is in the land of the Chaldeans, which puts us back in Iraq, and that's why I struggle so much with people seeing Babylon in New York. I actually think that's part of the deception the Antichrist is going to use, is maybe see the destruction of America or New York or whatever, and a bunch of other wars and turmoil, and then he's going to get up and declare that for anybody that still believes in that goofy Bible, that was your end times fulfillment. He'll say New York was Babylon and it was destroyed, and now he's the Messiah that they can worship. I'm sure he's going to pull that trick. And so I just hate when people start pointing to other cities saying that it's the mystery Babylon from the Bible, because I really think you can't escape that the Bible is in the land of Babylon is in the land of the Chaldeans. And now we've got real evidence that something is afoot in Iraq. So I'll leave it there for tonight. I really appreciate comments down below. You can tell I think that I'm still pretty excited. I guess it's 5 videos in 6 or 7 days here. I'm really seeing a lot going on, and just I'll put it out there as I have the chance. So thanks, Saints, and it looks like we are living in some fantastic hour for biblical prophecy.